So first and foremost, let me just say this. We got to get this out of the way. I'm going to use a term that in recent years, some of y'all might have discovered is a slur. Okay? I'm going to use this word with the attempt to educate. I'm not going to be using this term as an insult. I'm not going to be using this term with the intent to offend anybody. If you so happen to be of Romani descent and you see this video and you find it offensive, it makes you feel some type of way, I will take this video down and I will publicly apologize. If you are not a Romani person, in this case, I'm specifically talking to you liberal white women, I don't want to hear nothing about how this offends you. I do not care. I'm sick and tired of y'all telling people who can and can't be offended by what, when most of the time y'all don't even have enough context and a foundation of what you're even talking about. Just let me cook. This video is about the Romani people. Cash, why are you talking about the Romani people in this Black History Month? Let me cook. All right? So first and foremost, the intent of this video is to educate weak people that I hear all the time talk about. I don't even know if I can say this without this video getting like shadow realmed or whatever, but I'm just going to say the word slavery. All right. I hear weak people always talking about slavery like, oh, everybody was slave. Everybody had slaves. Everybody. It's the oldest thing in the world. Oh, everybody had slaves. And first of all, that doesn't make it right. And second of all, no, dude, that's not, no. There's slavery as a way to basically like operate a society that can exist in multiple different ways, multiple different capacities. And then you have chattel slavery, okay? Chattel slavery, the word chattel in this context comes from a French word that means cattle. It means like cattle. These are people who were bred into slavery. They inherited slavery, okay? They always want to talk about stuff like the Han Dynasty Chinese anytime black people want to talk about slavery. It's like, first off, y'all never talked about this before until black people talk about slavery. But it's like, that was not chattel slavery. Okay, these people were peasants. They farmed the land for this warlord, and then another warlord and came and killed them, and then they farmed the land for another warlord. Okay, they did not have their dignity, their language, their culture stripped from them. Okay, people want to talk about the Irish. Yo, yes, the Irish came over here across the Atlantic Ocean. Yes, they were not victims of chattel slavery. You know how I know? We know they are Irish. They're still Irish. They still do Irish stuff. They still do their little da-da-da and drink their beer and do their Irish things. We as foundational Black Americans, Southern Negroes, niggas always calling themselves something different every decade. Whatever you calling us now, we don't know where we come from in Africa. That's why immigrants always want to talk bad about it. It's like, oh, you don't even know where you come from. It's like, you don't even know if you're Sudanese or if you're Moroccan or if you're from Namibia or Zambia, wherever. It's like, no, duh, dude. How could we know? That is chattel slavery, okay? Now, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind. It's around the time that I was trying to be a history major. I was going to Northeast Alabama Community College. And this was around the time that Chicago hip-hop scene blew up, okay? It devolved into two different distinct paths. You had all the drill stuff with Keef and Dirk and Herbo and all that stuff. And then you also had the light side to the yin and the yang, which was the more uplifting, the kids these days, the Vic Mensa, the Chance the Rapper and all that stuff, Mick Jenkins. And so like out of this scene, one of my favorite artists emerged. Her name was No Name Gypsy. And I remember hearing her music for the first time and being blown away. Amazing artist. If you think all rap music is just a bunch of blah, 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 a bunch of jungle noise, then don't worry about it. Extremely talented young lady. And I would become a fan of her music. And I'll never forget the day that she dropped her name, half of her name. She just changed her name to No Name. And she went on to say like, hey, I found out that the gypsy part of my name is offensive to a population of people. I didn't mean no disrespect. Out of respect for them, I'm dropping it from my name. I'm just No Name. And I remember thinking like, yo, what's offensive about the word gypsy? I remember thinking like one of my favorite songs by Curtis Mayfield is Gypsy Woman. I think it was originally a cover by the Monkeys, Zombies, Turtles, one of them bands from the 60s. They all sound the same to me. But yeah, and I remember this is around the time that I found one of my favorite subgenres of jazz, gypsy jazz. Shout out to my OG Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli. I always murder his last name. But I'm thinking, like, what is so disrespectful about this word? And that's where I got into this rabbit hole of learning about the Romani people, which is a very fascinating thing to me. And what I find amazing and simultaneously heartbreaking is the parallels between Romani history and Black history. And one thing that is always consistent is the pressure to forget your history, the consistent reminder of being told, hey, your history doesn't matter, oh, get over it, oh, blah 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 blah, it was so long ago. That's a common theme with both of these histories, and they run parallel. As I would dig into this history, I would find it's not actually as parallel as it seems. It's actually a little bit more of the same. Also, shout out to that one Assassin's Creed game where you could hire the gypsies to distract the guard. And the reason I'm using the term gypsy in that sense is because I'm pretty sure in that game, I think they used that term then, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. If that's strike one for me, then so be it. Cancel cash. But so dig. Let's start from the beginning and actually work backwards. Right now in Europe, when the term Romani or gypsy is thrown up amongst the European population, more times than not, they're associated with being thieves, lazy, beggars, entitled. I ain't never heard that before. As you go back into history, you look at the world wars. During World War II, during the Holocaust, I don't know if I can say that. During the, I ain't gonna say the G word either. A lot of people know about the 6 million, okay? What never gets talked about and is almost just swept under the rug like little footnote is the 500,000 Romani people that were killed, 86th, in that event, as well as the millions that were displaced during this time because they were literally being hunted by the Nazis, by the current regime. Nobody ever talks about this. It's always like a little detail that's in small writing in the history book. Like, oh, by the way, they was murdering these niggas too, right? Okay. You go back even further into history, and then you see that the first ever race-based slavery, chattel slavery amongst the Europeans, was not actually Black people. It was actually the Romani people. Chattel slavery, mind you. Now, we can sit here and we can split hairs about the brutality of different kinds of slavery. A lot of people like to argue that the worst form of slavery you could ever be, succumb to is the galley slaves, the ones that had to row the boat in the same spot, couldn't move, had to sit in your own excrement. Absolutely awful. This usually went down amongst the Greeks and the Turks in the Mediterranean Sea in that era. That is not chattel slavery because they died on that ship. Okay, rest in peace. God rest their souls. But it is not inheriting slavery based on who you were born to. It is not inheriting slavery based on the color of your skin, who your parents were. If your parents were slaves and you were slaves, it's not the same. So a lot of times people want to bring up Roman slavery. Roman slavery was all about hierarchy. You could work your way up as a slave and then have your own sub-slaves and then get promoted, and then all kinds of nuance that had nothing to do with stripping your culture, stripping your dignity, all kinds of things that don't have the same weight as chattel slavery in the Americas or chattel slavery in regards to the Romani people. Okay? So, once again, going back to how Black Americans don't know where we're from, we don't know where in Africa we're from. Like, and for you super woke people, Akubalan, and Black people, white people, plug your ears for a second. Black people, we need to have a meeting at some point about our origin and where we come from, because a lot of people are saying that we only come from Akubalan, and some people are saying that we only come from being indigenous to America. We need to have a meeting about that because the truth is in the middle. But moving on, there's documented folks were displaced all the way. For white people, you can unplug your ears now. White people, it's documented that people were transported from as far away as Mozambique or in Madagascar. Okay, so this notion that black folks only come from West Africa is cap. Okay, as a matter of fact, you would actually see American literature by way of black Americans positively affect the Romani people. As a matter of fact, some of the first ever black literature that was written by black people, the first language that it was translated to was the Romani language, the Romani people. And it's like, yo, the same time that black folks was, doing their thing post-Civil War, Reconstruction, you saw that affect the Romani people, and you saw a similar struggle over there. And this is where it starts to intermingle a little bit more than we were taught and more than we realized. There were thousands of Romani slaves who were brought to France, Spain, Great Britain, who actually ended up getting sent to the Caribbean, who would ultimately end up in places like Virginia and Louisiana. As a matter of fact, there's actually a thriving population of Afro-Romani people in Louisiana right now to this day. As a matter of fact, we know the tradition of jumping the broom as a way to symbolize matrimony by way of the people who were enslaved in America, right? Black Americans, right? Did you know that actually comes from the Romani people? Yeah, that tradition actually came from the Romani people. I want to say I'm not sure exactly where in Europe those Romani people came from, but they were displaced across the Atlantic and ended up intermingling. Basically, they kind of became us because there was not a significant amount of Romani people as far as numbers go to the point where it made a difference within the plantation lifestyle of Southern USA at the time, pre-Civil War, but it was influential nonetheless. So a lot of us foundational black Americans walking around right now, a lot of us have Romani ancestry. We don't even know it. Back to not knowing where you come from. As heartbreaking as this is, I think it is an amazing test to these people's resilience. The term gypsy comes from the European premonition assumption that these folks came from somewhere in Africa, a Kubalan, specifically Egypt. Okay, it was assumed that these folks came from Egypt. That's where the term gypsy comes from. Okay, nowadays we understand this to be not true, which even adds even more insult to injury as it is a slur. Recent DNA evidence has shown us that these people actually come from North India, dog. These people come from the Punjabi region of India, fam. These people are from India and somehow ended up in Central Europe. They were called gypsies simply because, why not? You look Egyptian, you might as well be. And so that name stuck with them, even though it's not the true, it's not accurate to who these people are. That speaks volumes to the parallels between them and black Americans. Volumes, dude. Because if it wasn't for recent technology, these folks still wouldn't know where they came from. Similar to us black Americans. So once again, the intention of this video is to educate people between the difference of chattel slavery and all the other forms of slavery, feudalism, whatever you want to call it, right? The only examples that I can think of in modern history on that massive scale where people had to endure that is the transatlantic slave trade via foundational black Americans, black people, niggas, whatever you want to call us, and the Romani people. And there's this consistent invalidation of our history. There's this consistent, do you think it's a coincidence that the people who descended from the people who set these systems in place are the ones who are telling the people who descended from chattel slavery to forget their history? Do you think that is a coincidence? I don't know. So listen, I ain't nothing but a country boy from North Alabama. I've never met any Romani people. If this video happens to make it to somebody who is of Romani ancestry, I would love for you to reach out, fact check me. I would love to learn more. Tell me some books I need to read, whatever the case may be. But I feel like a wasp at the end of fall because I know winter's around the corner. That's how it feels late in February. So yeah, peace, love, eat your veggies, whatever.